Hi, everybody. Nick Blazier here with another Inside Backgammon interview. We'll get into that in just a moment, but I just wanted to share really quickly all the live commentary opportunities you have to see me in the next couple months. I'll be doing all the live streaming from my channel for the RAC London Open, which I'm really excited about. And then we've got Arda's Loot Rocky Greece tournament coming up, and then Ben Friesen's Cherry Blossom in April. So keep your eyes peeled for all that. But yeah, without further ado, today's guest is Geoff Hall, your winner of the 6th Gibraltar Backgammon Championship. So congratulations to you, Geoff, and welcome.
Thanks, Nick. Yeah, it was an amazing weekend. I think I've just got over it, to be honest. It's quite surreal at the time, but it's sunk in now, and it's a great feeling.
Yeah. So it didn't hit you as soon as you'd won, apparently, is what you're saying.
Sort of think a little bit did.
Yeah.
I've been close on a couple of tournaments.
Okay.
And but nothing like the Gibraltar Open. And so, as you're getting through each stage, you're thinking, this is a chance here. I've got, I'm in the last 8 or I'm in the last 4. 9 matches later or 8 matches later, I've reached the final. And I thought, wow, one more hurdle. Just pray that the dice are favourable, which they were in the final. And Mark Ferring, my opponent, was very, he accepts it. He's an experienced player. He knows that sometimes there's not a lot you can do if the dice are running against you. And great competitor. And I really enjoyed the final, both because it was Mark, but obviously because we were sitting in a penthouse suite on the top of this luxury yacht in Gibraltar with these great views. So yeah, it was a great experience, and it sort of sunk in gradually.
Yeah.
And Tim Cross actually said to me, Tim Cross is, as you know, a strong England player.
Of course. Always at the UBC competitions. Yep.
Yeah, and Tim, I spoke to Tim after, not long ago, actually, and Tim said to me, we talked about the PR. I said, I think on the transcribed matches, I averaged around 4.6. I did 4.1 in the final. And Tim said, one thing, that people will not be talking about your PR in a year's time. They will be saying, this is the Gibraltar winner.
Yeah.
And so it was far more important to win that event than come second with a PR of 2.5.
Yeah.
Because people... And I think Tim made a very valid point. And so, yeah, it sunk in even more there. I thought, you know what, I'm the winner. Who cares if it was? So.
Yeah. No, I mean, that all resonates, man. I don't remember what either of your PRs were in the finals, really. I thought I remembered you guys playing pretty clean. My first chance to see a lot of both of y'all's plays. I've been friends with Mark for a while, too. Apologies if I was rooting for him on the stream a little bit, but I've met him before. So.
Not a problem, Nick.
You gotta pick favorites somehow,
Yeah.
But yeah, that's it's interesting. Sometimes it can go both ways. If you just have like your best, I don't know, you have no decisions and you play a 0 point something in a 13-point match, like people might remember that and be like, that's the guy that plays a 0. But it's also still like not reality, right? So I'm always like hesitant to want to like share that stuff in my commentary and things like that, because it's like one match really isn't representative of much,
I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I know that Mochi said in one tournament in particular, he said he will back someone who can prove that they can play under a 6 PR, because anybody who plays under a 6 PR is capable of winning a tournament.
Yeah.
And actually, we were close to meeting in a tournament. I don't know if you know this, but the WBIF, the World WBIF, you played the opponent who beat me the round after. Otherwise, I came 13th or something.
Oh,
and
wow.
Otherwise, we would have played. Because
Wow.
you played a guy from England, didn't you? Well, technically from England. He was from America, but he had a British flag.
Peter Wisniewski or something like this? Pantera, I think is the nickname. Yeah,
he was going to be me the round before. Yeah, so we almost.
Oh, no way.
We would have almost met. Yeah.
That would have been fantastic, man. That's a couple good runs. So, like, I guess. Before we skip off that, I mean, so you like the penthouse suite on the yacht? I always think that's such a cool thing that they like move you off to a separate room. I've heard like varying opinions about it, but you liked being up there and in the private room and
I
everything?
mean, people have told me, apart from Las Vegas, because I do go there occasionally,
Yeah,
I haven't played a tournament outside the UK. So Gibraltar was my first international tournament.
yeah.
And people have told me about Arda. They said, you need to go to a tournament run by Arda because he runs it so well. And okay, maybe I've got a more favourable viewpoint having done so well, but it was fantastic the way that Arda and his team, you've got to remember his team. He had you on commentary. You were all doing fantastic jobs, and it just makes the whole experience. And then just to finish it off, ending up in this penthouse suite with this sweeping view over Gibraltar and the coastlines. Like I said, it was just crazy. It was just you don't get that in the middle of England, in Birmingham, for example. Not that I'm knocking the place I'm from, but it just makes it such a wonderful experience, and it's so well run as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, congrats on your commentary. I thought you've got a nice way about you in that you don't complain. You don't sort of go, why did they not make our point? What are they doing? Or why didn't they hit? You've got a pleasant way about you, but you are very informative at the same time. So that's great to watch as well.
Oh, thank you, thank you. Yeah, it's so funny to me. I don't know why people are so ornery about other people playing, but it does seem to be the norm in commentary for some reason. It's just so disappointing to see people make plays that they wouldn't have played. So
yeah. Don't worry, I give myself an upstick afterwards when I go through the match. Think, what did I do that for?
right.
It's so obvious now.
Yeah. I guess that's fair. That like all these. If they're like critical that way, they feel they're probably doing the same thing when they go through their own matches, right? Tough critic either way. Yeah.
Absolutely.
But yeah, everything you shared about how the tournament win just kind of creeps up on you all of a sudden like that. Like I feel like no one tends to get into these tournaments thinking from round one like I'm just this far away from winning, right? Like you're just playing backgammon for a while. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm at the money round, or I'm getting close to this is starting to matter. And the pressure kind of shows up like quickly towards the end there, I don't know if that affects your play or anything like that, but like other than excitement, do you feel like you start to like sweat the results a little more once you get that deep?
I think at this age, your brain starts to get a little bit. This was about my ninth match. Bearing in mind, I was playing in the seniors event and the doubles event. And Arda came up to me and said, I've scratched you out the seniors event because you're just not going to be able to play it. This was, later on in the day. And then my doubles partner had to start the match on her own. And by the time I'd finished and joined her, we were, we'd already played 5 games.
Yeah.
So it was getting close to finishing anyway.
Yeah.
And I think what happens, Nick, is you just get thrown from table to table to table. And there are a few instances that you vaguely remember. My key swing in the tournament, if I'm being honest, was the last 16. And I had Gaz Owen, again, a very strong UK player.
Yeah.
And he was 2-0 ahead. I'd taken the 4, I'd doubled and received the 4 cube, which were both correct.
Mm-hmm.
So I was sitting there with the 4 cube. Gaz has edged me out. We're on a race, but he's clearly in front, and I'm starting to catch, but just not enough. And he ends up with 1 checker on the 1 and the 3 point, and I end up with a couple of checkers on my 1 point. Mm-hmm. And Gaz manages to roll out a 2-1. Now that is such a huge swing.
Yeah.
And that was the turning point to me because Gaz would have been 6-0 ahead.
Yeah.
Instead of 4-2 behind.
Right.
Huge.
Yeah.
So although it was the last 16, I think it was last 16 or last 8 match, it was a huge turning point in the tournament for me, Nick. Mm-hmm. And that was when I thought, you know what, maybe my writing's on the wall here.
Yeah.
And sure enough, it did turn out that way.
Yeah. No, I guess that must be everyone that gets through like 6 or 7 matches, right? Is like you have to be so lucky to do that, whoever you are, right? I don't care if it's like the favorite in the tournament or the biggest underdog. Like winning 7 matches in a row is not a thing that's supposed to happen to most people, right? But of course it has to happen to a couple people. So, but yeah, you just have to feel like I've got God dice going on right now. This is fantastic. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think the better you are, obviously, if you're a 55% favourite in a match, I mean, casinos rely on these small edges being, rolled over and over again. So whereas a player playing roulette will have a winning night, if you look a year later, the chances are they will be, behind by roughly the house edge.
Right.
And it's much if you start multiplying 0.4 over and over again and compare that with multiplying 0.6 over and over again, you get to 5 or 6 matches, and there's a huge difference between the 0.4 and the 0.6 as compared to just that individual match. So I think anybody who is playing around a 6 PR or less is quite comfortably able to win that sort of tournament if they get the dice. That's my opinion, for what it's worth. I got the luck. I got the dice. Obviously, I won't say my luck factor, but it was pretty reasonable. And funny enough, the week before Gibraltar, I'd won 1 out of 5 matches. My luck was awful. Honestly, it was awful. But it's the old adage, Nick. If you're going to win 7 matches and lose 7 matches, you want to do it in that way. You want to lose 7 and then win 7.
Right.
Because you've got a 50-50 record, but you've won a tournament. It's no good going win, lose, win, lose, win, lose, win, lose. You're not going to get anywhere.
Right.
So I followed that adage and did it. I lost about 6 matches in a row, and then I won about 9 matches in a row.
Yeah, it's so funny how many different ways there are to get lucky, and like one of them is to have your wins line up, regardless of how often you win, right? Like you just need them to be in a clump, and then if you win 60% of matches, but they're always like 3 wins, 2 losses, 3 wins, 2 losses, like you're never gonna win, right? If you were so unlucky for it to come out that way. It's a good thing it doesn't, right? But I think you bring up a great point with odds, and I want to get into all this like casino game kind of background. I'm really interested in that too. But I played around with that for purchasing like Calcutta teams at tournaments too. And I was pretty surprised when I ran that math of how much like if someone has a 55% edge over the field and you multiply that out over 8 matches, how much higher their chances of winning the tournament are than an underdog, than a 45%, right? Like it might be an order of like 10 times or 100 times more, like in that range. Like it gets to be like big decimal places out, right? Where it looks like a real number for the favorite and almost like impossible for the underdog, So over long term, for sure that matters.
I mean, you could do a quick example. I've not prepared anything, but if you're a 0.6 and you play 3 matches, your chances of winning all 3, 0.6, 0.6, 0.6 is 0.216.
Okay.
6 times 6. So you're about 1 in 5. That you're gonna win. Now take a 0.4, which is 444.64. That's a roughly 1 in 15-ish. So all of a sudden, just 3 matches later, you've got your stronger player who will do it 1 in 5 times, or 1 in 5 tournaments, and you're not the strong player who will do it 1 in 15 tournaments. You might not even play 15 tournaments in a year.
Right.
So. And now that's just 3 matches, Nick. Now double that up to 6 matches, and exactly what you say. You started getting 10 times, 20 times probabilities. So it's this repeating multiplication of probability that's the value of diminishing numbers. If you're a weak at that.
Yeah, totally. I love math that way. I like to try to teach and commentate backgammon from like a less mathy perspective, but I mean, realistically, this is how I got into the game, is that I love trying to figure out puzzles like this, and like someone showed me the Jacobi paradox and I was like, I better work this out on paper, and so I made a video out with that. I get the feeling that you like doing these kinds of probability puzzles too.
I used to teach math.
Okay. Yeah.
It was a while back, but I used to try and make it interesting. Because you do get more attention if you can come out with something interesting. And so I used to come out with these sort of, like, how many people would you need in a room so that 2 of them, the chances of 2 of them having the same birthday was more than 50%.
Right.
And people go as 360 days in a year. So now, well, maybe it's 100 days, maybe it's a bit of a trick, maybe it's 90. And so I'd be getting these answers, and actually the answer's 23 if I remember.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
only need 23 people because of this power of diminishing probability. The chance of the first two is pretty slim, but now the chance of not matching two is a little bit higher. And by the time you get to the end, the chance of not matching any of those 19, you're talking, well, it's starting to become more favorable
Yeah.
the more you get. So I used to do that in my lessons. I used to come out with problem. I don't know if we got time, but there was a great problem. I don't know if you'll know this one. It's about three guys who go. I'll do an American version, so I use dollars. Three
Okay.
guys go for. I hope you don't mind this as a diversion, but this
No,
is.
let's do it. We got plenty of time, man. Yeah.
So three guys go for a meal, and the waitress comes along, and the bill comes to. Let me get this right. Oh yeah, it comes to $30 anyway.
Okay.
So the three guys all put $10 out, and the waitress takes it back to the to the till, and the manager's there, and he says those three guys are great regular guys. Give them a discount. So she thinks, oh okay, well what do you want me to do? She says give them a $5 discount. So she said okay, that's great. Then she thinks, well, hang on, they never left me a tip. So she pockets $2. She goes back to the guys. He says, "Hey, the manager's that pleased. He's giving you $1 back each for being, consistent customers."
Yeah.
So they're all happy. She's happy. She's made a tip. But the question was this. The problem was this, and this is what I used to say. The three guys have now paid $9 each. Correct?
Yeah.
So they all paid They paid $9 each, and the waitress has kept $2. So 3 9s are 27. The waitress has kept $2. That's 29.
Yeah.
So what happened to the other $1?
Yeah.
And I set that to a 12-year-old class once, and they thought it was a murder mystery. They were like, it's under the cook's hat. The chef's got it in his shirt. And I was going, no, there's a mathematical solution to this, which I'll let your viewers think about. Some of them will know. You may even know it yourself. I'm not sure. I'm not going to try and show you up and say what's the answer. I'm just going to let you just sit on it and think.
I want to. I'd have to sit and think about that. I'll try not to think about it in the background. But usually these kinds of problems.
Try not to think about. Hang on, three guys, 27. The waitress kept $2. What happened to that? What happened to that $30? Why did it only add to 29? So these are the sort of things. I've got quite a lot of them. Probably could do a whole show on it. These mathematics. I love things like that.
Yeah, usually it's like a wording thing has been my like experience with those kinds of problems, right? Like you're just talking about it the wrong way, but I don't know. It does seem like $1 disappeared. So I'll give you that.
This is the whole point. It is the way it's worded, but you're absolutely right.
Right.
But it is quite convincing that there's a missing $1 somewhere,
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, I've enjoyed, I've enjoyed math. That's been a big part. I did a degree in mathematics, statistics, taught at schools and colleges, and then decided that perhaps the rewards weren't quite what I was looking for. I loved the job.
Okay.
And then so I did a variety of things before I ended up at the casino one night playing blackjack.
Yeah.
Just on a works do, and got fascinated by the fact that if you've got a mathematical brain, you could actually turn the tables on the casino.
I love that.
Yeah. So that was back in sort of around 1990-ish.
Okay.
91.
Okay.
And I started playing backgammon soon after that.
Oh, cool. Okay.
And then just played cash games. And I was quite a good player then, as far as the standards go. And I was running out of opponents to play.
Yeah.
And then I stopped in about 97, and then started up again about just under 4 years ago.
Oh wow. Okay.
Not having a clue about match play.
Yeah.
I was shocked at the 2-away, 4-away situation because, and so I've really had to learn. And I've got a guilty secret to tell you. I was one of the first people to order your book when it was launched.
Awesome.
And I still haven't read through it all yet. I've just got to find the time because I know it will really help my game.
Yeah, yeah.
It's sitting on my bedside table
Yeah.
with a marker about 20 pages in. I need to find time to really sit through and go through. So that was my, from teaching math to getting involved with casinos, which was that big gap to coming back to backgammon. About 4 years ago, I thought, should I start poker again? Because I was a pretty reasonable poker player. Or should I try backgammon? And I went for backgammon, and I'm glad I have, because I think the people involved in backgammon are a really nice, it's a great community to be involved in.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And there are some players who you get particularly attached to, who you're very friendly with. But on the whole, the majority, and I'm talking literally 99.9% of the players are great. They're great company, and everybody's a bit different, quirky. I'm quirky. I'm a mad professor. But, everybody's got their little bits of quirkiness, and it's a great community, Nick, to be involved in.
Yeah. Yeah, I found that too. That is just so inviting, and yet, Phil Simborg was one of the first people that I met, out at tournaments, and there's a lot of people that are good at, bringing folks into that tournament scene and everything like that too, and I was hooked pretty quickly as well. So your poker playing then, you just played... tell me more about that. And you said you were a pretty decent player. When were you playing that?
Yeah, the way it sort of worked out is that I stopped teaching, and I thought, well, no, that was a bit silly because I don't really know what I'm going to do. I had an idea to set up some kind of business, but didn't really know what.
Yeah.
So then I started working for a sales company selling. I wanted to sell computers because I was interested. I ended up selling computer stationery, slightly not so elegant. Yeah. But this company had a work to do one night. It was a casino night. I ended up at the casino, not knowing what I was doing. And I remember I won about £80 or about $100.
Sure.
And I thought, this is fun. And then my dad's friend, I knew, went to the casino a lot. And he told me this thing about counting cards. Mm-hmm. And so I learned how to count cards, but I hadn't learned how to play correctly. Yeah. Because it's a way. So I was going to the casino, I was raising my bet at the right time, but still not playing right and breaking about level.
Yeah.
And of course, the casinos loved it because they thought, oh, we've got a player, he's a regular player, doesn't seem to be doing that well. He's making daft decisions like standing on 14 against a 7 or hitting 12 against a 6. And then one night I met someone, and he said to me, he could see that I was raising bets at the right time, and he said, I'm a counter, and he lent me a book, and I read it. I'm like, what? You play it like this? Wow. So I learned how to play blackjack, and then I learned how to play backgammon, and then I got barred from a couple of casinos because they weren't that happy about my blackjack. So I thought I'm going to have to try and find something else to do to keep in with the casino. So I started playing poker, really, to keep in with the casinos because they like poker players there. Well, they still do.
Yeah.
So I started playing poker. I thought, hang on, I'm making at least as much money playing poker, cash games, as I am playing blackjack. And nobody's trying to bar me at poker. So I in the end, Nick, for 3.5 years, I played, 30 months to get this right, 2.5 years, I played just full-time poker and blackjack.
Oh, amazing.
And I made a living. I didn't make an extravagant living. Maybe the poker wasn't quite what it is now.
Yeah.
But I made a comfortable living. And then I moved on a few years after that and got into designing casino games.
Yeah. That's so cool. I love that. So the poker playing's like the late 90s then, or the early 2000s? Like pre or post Moneymaker is the question, right?
Good question. It was pre-Moneymaker. I stopped playing poker around 98, 97. I'm trying to think when Moneymaker won now. It wasn't
In
soon. It was
2003 or four. It was pretty early.
yeah, it was
Maybe actually
long.
earlier. Yeah, somewhere around there.
I designed my first casino game in '99, and I
Cool.
stopped any sort of gambling or what I consider investing
Yeah.
in 2000. So it was, yeah, it would have been about 3 years after that Moneymaker won the World Series. But I was
Amazing.
out of it by,
Okay, okay. Was it all limit then still, or were you getting to play like what game was? What was your game?
well, it was designing casino games. I was spending 60, 70 hours
Yeah.
a week.
Oh no, I
Um,
meant sorry. What was your poker game? What was your poker game
oh, I
of
beg you,
choice?
right. Well, initially, like everybody, Hold'em poker.
Yeah, but
But
like
I
limit
developed,
then? Was it limit?
no, it was pot limit.
Oh, pot limit. Hold them. Okay, okay.
Yeah,
That's a lot of fun.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean it's changed now. It's no limit even in the UK.
Yeah.
But in the biggest game that I played cash was Pot Limit Omaha.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So and we in the UK we're pretty crazy in the UK. We play 4, 5, or 6 card.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, you can imagine you've got 6 cards. Um, you know, and even in 4 cards, I see it if I go to a place, or I used to, where they were used to hold them because they'd hit 2 pairs and think they've got the absolute. When in
Right.
4 card over, I forget it. You know, you've got that many draws against you. You're not even favourite sometimes when you've got the straight.
Yeah, right, right. Yeah. It's such an interesting game. I want to get better at Omaha. I grew up all like post Moneymaker on No Limit Hold'em, you know. So that's the game that I
Yeah.
know. But so I'm all super interested in that. And I've been really like I've thought about getting more into poker again too, now that you can kind of study it the same way that you can use extreme gammon to study backgammon. Like there's more bot and solver assistance out there to give you sort of answers theoretically at least, which is just makes it a more interesting game to me than I started to like it less when I felt like I was like bum hunting, right? Like I was just trying to find people that I thought I was better than somehow to be able to beat. And I don't know, it's just not as attractive as an environment for me. Yeah.
It's funny actually because I was at one point I was £70,000 owing during my early company days,
Yeah.
and so the one time I thought, well, I've gone on to a poker site called it was called Paradise Poker,
Sure, I remember.
um,
Yeah.
and actually they were pretty much the big guys early on,
Yeah.
and I I went on and I saw that I'd got £1,000 in there. I'd forgotten about it. Sounds terrible. And I thought I could cash this. It's useful, I'm sure. But then I thought, you know what? Why don't I just play it? I didn't know it was there.
Yeah.
So I played a whole month Omaha poker, and I was playing the smaller stakes to start with and building up. And then I built up to a reasonable amount, and I noticed there was one Russian guy who always sat at the 25.50.
Mm-hmm.
And that was much bigger than the stakes I was playing. I was playing 1-2 or 2-5 or whatever.
Yeah.
And that can get pretty scary at times, you know.
Oh yeah, of course.
So I saw this guy and I thought, I think he's made up. Every night, this guy was just sitting there with $5,000 in front of him. Nobody seemed to be playing. So I thought, I'm going to, you know, I built up from 1,000. I was around the 15,000 at this stage.
Yeah.
So I sat down with 5,000 just as a scene. Posted my blind straight away, and the card's dealt. And before I know it, I'm playing this guy heads up, and all I'm thinking is, "Oh my gosh, just win this hand." And I actually ended up. I won his first 5,000, and he
Yeah.
reloaded.
Yeah.
And then he was losing a couple of thousand from that, and went. And I thought, I can't believe it. I've won $7,000 just like this. And joined another table anyway. The long shot is I was up to I remember the figures, £28,000, not dollars, pounds ahead.
It's a lot more.
And then I had a bit of a glitch at the end, and I ended up £19,000 ahead.
Yeah.
And at the end of the month, and I cashed in, and it coincided actually, Nick. I don't know if you know this, but Paradise Poker started releasing skins.
Mm-hmm.
In other words,
yeah,
different play. Now I was figuring out with the regular players I was playing. And one time I played this player and he said, hi, he called me by my name. My name at the time was, I think I called myself Ivor Bigger. Bit corny, but Um, and he said, hi, Ivor. He said, it's whoever it is. I went, well, that's not your name. He goes, no, I'm using a different skin. And I think I was playing players again who I didn't know because they were joining a new account and making different skins. So
Yeah.
I lost about 9,000 back and took my 19,000 and just thought, great. And that really helped. There are certain turning points. I was
Yeah.
reading a story about, sorry, I'm a bit like that with my brain. It
No, this
does
is
wander.
amazing, man. I love it. Keep going.
No,
Yeah.
but the FedEx guy, I don't know if you know this, the FedEx guy was down to his last $5,000 in his account, and he had a $27,000 fuel bill.
Yeah.
And if he can't pay it, his bank, the company does not exist.
Yeah.
So he just thought, well, I'm pretty good at blackjack. He took the 5,000 to Las Vegas and won enough. I mean, again, you've got to have luck to pay the bill.
Oh, that's
To pay
outrageous.
the bill. And from there, as you know, FedEx is a hugely successful company. So some of these, there can be a lot of turning points. To be successful in business,
Yeah.
like a tour, you have to be lucky at the right time, Nick.
Right. No, I completely agree with that. I love that perspective too. There's this whole like confirmation bias of success too, right? Like every successful person you hear, well, I was like willing to take some risks and I worked really hard at it. And in the end it all came together and I needed some luck and but mostly if you just work hard, you can do it too. Well, that advice at the end, I don't know. Because we haven't heard the story of everyone who tried to get lucky and worked really hard and failed. We only hear from the FedEx guy, right, that made it through. So I don't know. It's very interesting that way. Yeah.
It's a little bit like lowering your PR in backgammon. You give yourself more chance of winning a tournament.
Right.
If you work hard, you give yourself a chance of finding that lucky moment of being there at the right time.
Yeah.
Because if you stayed at home and watched, you know, Breaking Bad instead, which is an enjoyable way to spend an evening,
Sure.
you're not gonna have that choice meeting. So I put a lot of hours in, a lot of evening times because of the 8-hour difference with like Las Vegas, for example. So I've got no, my one game was valued at a high amount that I sold. I got a good deal for it, but I put a lot of hours. Some people say, well, you got this deal, that's a massive deal. And I'd think, well, not really. Think about the 15 years prior to that that I spent working, literally sometimes I'd be phoning my friend up in the US, Roger Snow, who's a very competent game designer, director. I phoned him up at 5 a.m. and things on his hotline almost. And he'd be going, it was only 9 o'clock over there, you see. And he'd go, what are you doing up at 5 a.m.? I said, I've cracked it. I've got this great idea. And, it would come to me at all sort of weird times. And unless you put that effort in, Nick, I mean, you're right.
Yeah.
Some people still put that effort in and not make it.
Yeah.
I should have phoned up. Roger might not have been in that night. Could all be different. Yeah. But you do create more luck the harder you try it.
I think so too. I think in the end it's all like the best and only advice. It's just an interesting thing to think about. But all right, you've got me. I'm reeled in. I'm ready to hear about the game design and how you got into this. What was the game that you sold, and how did this all start?
Okay. Well, it started in around 98-ish.
Yeah.
I was playing blackjack at the casino, and what I used to do was play poker for my main income, and blackjack would sort of pay for the gas.
Yeah.
Not taking liberties, not raising my stakes too high. So I was playing one night, and I noticed that kept getting 16 and 15, or 13 and 18, and I thought, God, if only I could put that card over there, switch them around, I'd have had 11 and 20. If only those two cards were the other way around.
Yeah.
It made me think about this game where you could switch your cards around.
Ah.
And And then it just sat there, Nick, for a few months, and I never gave it another thought until I was in Las Vegas, and this guy comes running up to me, a friend of mine. He went, "They've got this game. You could double on any number of cards. You could do this. You could do that." And I said, "Hold on. What's the bad side?" He goes, "There isn't one. There isn't one." And I went, "No way they're going to offer all those rules." So I went and checked it out, and sure enough, it said tens are removed, and it was called Spanish 21, the game, and the Spanish has got the tens removed. But it did make me feel that, hang on, you can design games, and casinos do seem to be interested. Mm-hmm. And a person in the UK at the time had just designed a game that I'm sure you're familiar with called 3-Card Poker.
Okay, yeah.
And that's a guy called Derek Webb.
Okay.
Who now lives in Las Vegas. And Derek, who came from Derby in the UK, was a poker player as well.
Yeah.
So through a fellow poker player, another Derek called Derek Baxter, I contacted Derek Webb. I told him about my game. He wasn't interested in investing in it, but he told me what to do, who you have to approach, Nevada Gaming. So I developed this game, Nick, about playing 2 hands of blackjack, but having the ability to switch your top 2 cards around.
Oh, cool.
So great, it was an enjoyable game. The downside was that your player lost some ties against the dealer, and it sort of fizzled a bit, and it went into the Taj Mahal in Atlantic City.
Okay.
Which is a great thing, but it's also a bad thing, because none of the other casinos that I approached were interested in putting the game in until they heard about how it got on at the Taj. And it sort of faltered a bit there. It didn't make much money. It was popular. So it came out, and that's that tipping point again, where you either say, well, I gave it a good go and failed, or is there something more I can add to the pot? And I knew the switch was great. Players loved the switch. They didn't like losing ties.
Yeah.
So I thought, how can I get around it? And I came up something that the dealer does that will affect everybody at the same time instead of each individual player. And I thought, well, the only thing I can work on is the bust totals, where the dealer busts. So I thought, I know. What about if the dealer busts with, say, a 22? Instead of paying everybody out, it's just a push, a standoff for that one hand.
Yeah.
And so, to cut the long story short, I developed what was called a push 22 rule. And then I used that push 22 because it's worth around 6.9% to the house. It gives you lots of things you can now give to the player that's great. So I came out with games. And then free bet blackjack, which is probably my most successful game, more successful than Blackjack Switch, was launched around 2013.
Okay.
And then I sold it in 2015. I mean, people can get the information where it's, the value that I sold it for. But, I did well. I mean, I don't want to explore it too much, but let's just say I could have rebuilt Steve Austin with the money. But he's got that much of a memory to remember that. Otherwise, I'm going to be quite subtle about it. So.
Well, amazing, man. That's congratulations. It's so cool. It feels like that's a common story in the backgammon community too, right? Like people that have had big successes like this and now are just like trying to use that brain in another way, and it's exciting to compete. And it's like a very cool meeting of minds that way. Like that's one thing that I really like about the backgammon community,
You're right. I think that there's a really good section of, retired people, successful businessmen. It's nice to see the younger players as well who are developing the game. But some of the older people that got characters, like we say, Phil Sinborg, who the only bad thing with Phil is he doesn't normally have much to say. I bought the board. I bought the P40 so that went down well with Phil.
Yeah.
People like John O'Hagan, I really admire. I don't know a lot about his background. I just admire him for the way he presents himself, the way he is, on the backgammon board. If the dice are going against him, you wouldn't know. He's, or at least I've never seen evidence. Real gentleman. I mean, I'm not just cherry picking. There's people like Mochi, a great ambassador for the game, who I met in Vegas. You know, I could just keep naming. So I feel bad not naming. But now, if I start a list, I'm always going to miss somebody. But
Yes,
everybody
of
I've met,
course. Yeah.
you know, a great. It's a great community, as I said before. Really got a lot of time, and I enjoy playing the game, but I enjoy the social aspect as well, meeting these players.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I'm with you, man. They're just so many interesting personalities and yeah, like very a lot of we're seeing more and more composure. I feel like at the top end, you know, kind of at competitions too, which to me like it seems like that's it's hard to get to that place without having that sort of mindset, you know? Like I don't know, it's just like it's good for your for how you think about making good decisions over the board to be able to keep that cool too. So it's nothing surprising to me that the best players would be also like pretty pleasant about those kinds of swings in general, you know?
Absolutely right. I mean, well, in the poker term is on tilt, being
Yeah.
on tilt.
Yeah.
I used to play cash backgammon with a gentleman
Mm-hmm.
who um, would when he was quite a strong player when he was level.
Yeah.
But he had two problems. One, he would stay up for too long. So it was always good to meet him once he'd had one bad casino experience, because he probably hasn't slept for 24 hours, but he's still happy to play.
Yeah.
But his worst trait was if he got a bit behind, the cube would just be thrown over. Like, for example, 2-1, I would slot.
Yeah.
He said, well, if you're going to play it that way, I'm going to give you the cube. And I think, well, if you're going to give me the cube, I'm even wondering if I should play 3-1 that way, just so I can go to the cube, rather than make. I mean, it's an interesting question. You're better off making the 5-point, or you're better off slotting and having the cube. I'm
Yeah.
not even sure.
My instinct
Probably
is that you're right because I've heard people at least roughly equate the value of the cube to like spotting the cube is similar to spotting an opening 3-1. And so if that's the case and you're giving that back and you're doing like you get the 3-1 spot and you get a little better than neutral because you get the opening roll in the slot, like probably that's a positive proposition. You know? Yeah.
I mean, I tried it. I would just sort of, I'd go, well, I would never beaver it, because then, you lose you lose that market once you beaver it.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I would just go, well, I've got to take it, and maybe I make it look like it was, yeah. But I'd make sure 5-1, 4-1, 2-1 to slot that 5-point,
Yeah.
especially if he was behind. And
Yeah.
then you're sitting there with the cube for the rest, for the game.
Yeah.
So you're right. You've got to have the right temperament. And certainly, I've learned this a lot from playing blackjack. I could play for 3 hours where the count doesn't rise, and you just have to put minimum bets. Or maybe I'm down on the night with half an hour left before the casino closes.
Yeah.
Well, I've accepted that I'm going to lose. And in poker, I did the same. If I felt myself calling with a hand I shouldn't be calling with, I would say that's it for the night.
Yeah.
So I was very good at, my temperament was very good. And backgammon, I'm learning it now. The dice can be cruel at times, but I'm accepting it more and more now. We both know, Nick, we can lose to anybody.
Yeah.
We can also play an 11-point match against Mochi tonight,
Yeah.
and both win.
Right.
But we know we've got to have slightly more favourable dice to beat a person of that standard. But Mochi understands that. John O'Hagan understands that.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's that understanding that I think does make you a better player.
Yeah. My feel on the luck and frustration with that too is that like the dice are just far more cruel than like any poker hand has been for the most part, But I don't know if you have a feeling about that. I don't know why that is, but something about the swings in backgammon is like even harder, which makes it even more fun to me. Like I don't know. I like that a lot. Yeah.
I lost a match the other day, and one of the games I was 99.7% to win the game.
Yeah.
With 51% gammons.
Yep.
And I lost that game because I well, obviously the inevitable left at shot. He only had a 2 point board
Yeah.
because everything had crunched,
Yeah. Yeah.
and he's managed to keep that checker and bear off before I can come round and bear the other 3 checkers off along with that one. So, I think
Sure.
the longer you play the game, the more that you see, the
I'm
more
sure.
you can.
Yeah. I'm sure the same stories out there, and then they lost the gammon somehow, right? Like,
Yeah, I mean,
that stuff just happens,
that's
right?
one thing. Yeah, and overall, all I know is my luck is going to. If you add up every match I play, I'm going to be pretty close to 0 luck.
Right.
Sometimes it's going to be -7, -8. Sometimes it's going to be +7, +8.
Yeah.
And I know that I had my fair share of luck in Gibraltar, but it was more of a consistent luck. It was you can't have a +7, +8 in a couple of games and then a -4 because the chances are you're going to lose that one.
Yeah.
You've got to have +1, +2, +3, just trickling along,
Yeah.
which is what happened. I was getting some nice pluses on every game. Great,
That's
it
amazing.
can happen.
Yeah. Well, that's so cool. I'm fascinated by. I've like done a little bit of playing casino games with friends that were like invested in trying to beat that kind of stuff. Always fascinated by like the reverse engineering efforts that go on out there to figure out what you can do. But yeah, that feels like a pretty similar skill set to backgammon for sure. I mean, there's a lot of odds calculation. I'm curious if you have anything like there's still a strategic component to backgammon that maybe there aren't quite as much in these other games, Like how have you in your learning of backgammon, how have you wrestled with that aspect of the game?
I think initially, I'm going back to the 90s again when I was a bit younger and a little bit. When I started playing backgammon, somebody said to me, "There's a tournament at this casino you can play in, but leave it for 6 months."
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really competitive. I read 8 books in 2 weeks back then.
Yeah.
Now that sounds even worse that I haven't finished your book saying it. But I had more time there because that was during my as I was just a gambler then, basically playing for a living.
Yeah.
So I took a lot of the strategies from that. I think it's just some people are really good at looking at the position and having that mental feeling that, this is looking like gammonish or this is looking like a pass or I should be doubling. I do like Mitch's videos. I'm sorry to plug them, but Mitch, another great ambassador for the game. Yeah. And Mitchy, I like the way he says, right, I've got the cube here. Now, how many gammons can I lose here? Because that's a key factor as well. And he works out he's really accurate. He's so much better than me, but I'm not too bad. So I can work out, I can win 30% of the game, or I could lose 70%, but actually I only lose 5% gammon. So maybe this is a take or whatever. And so it's getting that feel, Nick, of both the position and looking and being able to evaluate how gammonish is that position, how many times can I win. The maths side is quite reasonable. I'm good at racing games. I use eyesight. So I'm comfortable on that area, but then I still make some real blunder passes. I think I've still seen the top players doing it.
Yeah.
I mean, those cubes are so horrible because you could take a checker. There was one position where it was a bear off one, so that's a bit irrelevant. But you can take a checker and move it back 2 spots, and it becomes a completely different answer.
Of course, yeah.
And also, then you've got to factor in the match score.
Yeah.
At 2 away, 3 away, it's a big no double. At 2 away, 4 away, it's a pass. And oh my God, but it's great. I like the challenge as well.
Yeah, I love that the magnitude of the game, like how there's always something new to learn, right? And like once you learn what you think is everything at that moment, then you have to figure out how to remember it all, and then there's still something new to learn, So it's endless that way, and I love that's my favorite part about the game by far. Yeah.
I think it's got enough. I mean, I can't help it. Being a games designer, I'm looking at ways to try and design. So I came out with a version called 3D Gammon, which I'm happy to tell people about. They can try it if they wish. And what it is you use a third dice, which has just got a plus and a minus, one plus and one minus. Now, if you haven't got one of those dice, then you can use the 1 and the 6,
Yeah,
for
yeah,
example.
yeah.
So you play, say, with 2 black dice and a white dice. Now, you throw the 3 dice. If the white dice comes up with the number 1, that's a minus.
Yeah.
Then you've rolled 6-2. Then you can either play it as 6-2, or the minus means you can subtract 1 from the lowest number. So you can play it as 6-1 instead.
Okay.
If it comes with a plus, so if you roll a 6 with it, then you can add 1 to your lowest number. So you can play it as a 6-3 instead.
Yeah.
But it adds quite an extra dimension, which is why I call it 3D Gammon, to the game. And I showed it to Mochi actually in Las Vegas, and he told me about one of his concepts, which I like. And we were both trying it out. We were playing it, and I challenge anybody to play a PR of less than 4, playing that version. But of course,
and how would we know, right?
Yeah. I think like exactly what you said. Backgammon is challenging enough as it is. Do you really need to add much? The cube just adds that extra difficulty level.
I love all the variants too, though. I think I'm a problem solver, and I like thinking on my feet that way. And this is in the moneymaker boom. That's what poker felt like. Was like you're figuring out something. And I've heard like ancient backgammon in like the 70s was like this too, before we had bot feedback. And there's something to that about like trying to come up with your own reasoning and break a game without just having solutions and trying to memorize it. Right? It's a different style of playing for sure. Someone on LinkedIn reached out and had like this variant backgammon that they want me to play, and maybe I'll do a video with them at some point. But I've seen a couple of those too, and I always think it's a ton of fun. Yeah. The only silly thing. Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. No, go on.
What I had one? I don't know if the game actually works, but I was playing around like in my house once, trying to make a 4-player version of backgammon where you had 4 sets of checkers on the board. And so 2 of you are going the typical direction, and the other 2 are counter that, and you just go in a circle and play around. And you have to like reestablish what the midpoints mean in each one and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't know if the game actually is fun to play, but I came up with one with like actual, like you could do it, So I don't know. I think stuff like this is fun to think about, like what that would mean, and try it out. Yeah.
I think it's a shame that it doesn't quite appeal to the masses, whereas it does. And whether you could turn it into some form of drinking game, whereas, behind each checker is a drink, for example, and as you bear them off, the other person has to drink it.
Yeah.
So obviously, if you completely take them all off, or maybe the checkers you've got left are what you've got to drink.
Yeah.
So if you're left with 15 checkers, that could be tough. There might have to be a rule there that maybe some of them say water or something or nothing.
I've seen this one sold. It's just the checkers are shot glasses, or like chess like this in checkers. Yeah. But in the Japan Open, if you haven't been to this one, they play Sushi Gammon, which is a DMP game, I do believe. And for each checker you bear off, you have to eat a piece of sushi. And so the only way you can win and hit the clock is once you've consumed all the sushi to get all your checkers off the board.
Oh, wow. I mean, see, you add a fun element to it.
Yeah.
And that may be the way to attract, backgammon drinking game. I could imagine, the students, the college kids going, you know what? Forget the ping pong or whatever it's called, that pong, let's try this one out.
Yeah.
And you just got to roll the dice and keep it simple initially.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to see if somebody approached it from that angle.
It's like a nice prop for chouetting and that kind of stuff too, right? It's like we've gotten to a place where people feel like they can know and need to know exactly where they are in the pecking order, and do I have an edge on this game or not? At least in the US, maybe it's even more like this, which isn't great for getting games to run, But you bring in any like new variant or something like this. Phil Simborg's great about this. And no one knows the game all of a sudden. And now you all think like you have a reasonable chance of figuring this out better than the people you're playing with. And you have a reason to play, Like
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
just a new problem. So yeah, I think that's very good for like the life of gambling in the game, at least. Yeah.
Absolutely. You might have to combine it with another game and you like hybrid and you're hitting table tennis balls at the same time as moving checkers or something. I don't know.
Sure,
But
sure. Yeah. Yeah.
talking of I'd like to, if I got time, very
Yeah.
quickly run. I'm doing a holding. Again, this is just the way I am with my mind. I look at the UBC, and I am going to Turkey. Actually, I hope you're going to be in Istanbul.
Oh yeah.
Um,
I don't have plans to travel there yet, but yeah, yeah.
I'll be at the RAC as well, so
Okay.
hopefully you might be commentating on me if I make the later stages again.
Yeah.
Um,
That's the
but
plan.
yeah, I've got the UBC format. I think it's fantastic viewing.
Yeah.
Um, the only I'm trying to bring in what I would call like club players, people who play 6, 7, 8 PR, 10 PR. But they're not going to want to play somebody like ZZ,
Right.
heads
Yeah.
up,
Yeah.
where there's a point for PR and a point for the win.
Mm-hmm.
So what working on, and I've had tremendous feedback, but I wanted to let you or your viewers at least know firsthand, is
Please.
a UBC style handicap PR tournament.
Oh.
The way it works is, let's say ZZ's handicap is, I don't know why I picked ZZ, but except he's another great guy in the backgammon world. Let's say ZZ's handicap is through. Let's keep the numbers whole.
Yeah.
So ZZ has got a PR of through. He's playing an opponent who's got a PR of 9.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So ZZ will be slight favourite to win the match. But PR wise, he's a huge favourite.
Mm-hmm.
So the way the handicap works, Nick, is let's say that the 9 PR player plays an 8.1.
Mm-hmm.
So he's 0.9, so he's 10%. So I do it on percentage, he's plus 10%. So
Okay.
ZZ has to do 2.7 or lower to win the PR.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm running the tournament over summer, and I'll be interested. In fact, ZZ's got an invite, and I've already pretty much filled the tournament up. I can only fit 24 people here really comfortably. I'm running it at my home.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, I think I'm going to keep it informal, but it will be properly done. Mate Faye
Yeah.
is helping me with the transcriptions. He's helping me run the tournament.
Nice.
I've already got a whole host of top players. Well, when I say top, Gaz Owen, Tim Cross,
Yeah.
ZZ. I've asked Mochi.
Yeah.
He said if he's in the UK, he'll play.
Yeah.
But I want to get some, what I call your regular players as well
Yeah.
playing, and have that balance, Nick. So I don't know what you think of the concept, but that's what I'm going to be doing over the summer.
Yeah. That's a interesting way to handle the PR discrepancy, to turn it into a percentage and stuff. So you'll have to have statistics on their play beforehand. And I guess like what? So there's an advantage to like a rapidly improving player or something like that. But I mean, good. That's fine. Yeah.
Got somebody like Reece Hodges in the UK who's only been playing for around 3 years or so,
Yeah.
who's gone from he's gone like that.
Yeah.
But he's playing it.
Yeah.
But I know his PR now.
Mhm.
That's the thing. But like you say, you've got to be careful. But everybody will have an established PR. I will know these players quite well.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
The last thing you want is somebody coming along and saying I play a 12,
Yeah.
and then the first 3 matches they play 3.2, and you think, hang on, that's not something's not right here,
Yeah.
Neil
So
Caceres in disguise,
I love it. So you're bringing the whole like game design thing to backgammon too. I love that. Like people bring their strengths that way. What's your vision for how this would like get played out if it works out in this tournament? Like you want this to be a side event at tournaments in general, or what do you think? What are you trying to do with it?
I thought of that, but I must admit I would like it to be at least once a year here,
Yeah.
maybe even twice a year, to
Okay.
have a UBC handicap. And actually, I'm thinking of why not have it BMAB rated as well,
Yeah. Yeah.
because people are going. It's a PR tournament at the end of the day, so.
Right.
We're looking at that. We're going to obviously have to talk to Dimitri. I think it would have to be.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
and
yeah. As long as it's like live matches and you're recording them and submitting them, they're like, if you're meeting all the typical rules, you're fine. You know what I mean? Like, there's not a whole lot to talk about. You just tell them you want to do that tournament, and I think they'll be amenable to that. You know? Yeah.
It'd be fun, Nick, and I'd like to have more players, but the transcriptions you have to get them back the next day.
Yeah.
So and you've seen what Mark Olsen is saying now about the UBC that's coming up in Turkey, that he wants to play it on tablets because of purely go to the transcription. So I don't want to get to that level.
Yeah.
And Matt said to me, 24 is pretty much a comfortable number, but one where we're going to be like, wow, let's get these matches done quick.
Yeah.
And be interested to see how it turns out as a first model.
That sounds super exciting. If I can be involved somehow, let me know, you know? But that sounds like
maybe
really
if
fun.
you commentate the final, Nick, that would be great.
You bet.
If you're willing to do that, I will mark you down for that.
Sweet. I'd love to.
It's an added well-known name to put out there, you know, if you're kind enough to do that, you know.
Yeah. I think their like creative new ideas in the scene are so great. The UBC thing's been doing well. Yeah, it's like the scaling it though, it feels a little stuck that way, you know? And so I know Mark's trying to figure out how to like generate entry fees so he can pay for an event or something. And that's like more players leads to this like having to play on tablets. But then you get that like, I mean, if I'm a player in that, like, why do I have to travel to Istanbul to like play on a tablet is like a valid question, right? Like we could do this online or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
Tough one.
Right. And I've heard other like the WBIF has been working on this win and skill format that's kind of interesting. That's similar, but this whole question of like how much should an outplay count, right? And they've got like a little formula to make it worth less if it's like very close and not like a clear outplay. Even though I don't know, there's funny things with that. I do appreciate like Mark's perspective on that is that it should be very viewer friendly. You know, and I agree with that quite a bit too. But I don't know, like we're in the infancy of doing these cool like skill-based competitions, you know? And there's a lot of room to go with this and try to figure out like what's engaging to people, what's most attractive to play in, how do we get the most people involved? And that sounds like another great way to give more people a reason to show up for those kinds of tournaments, which is really cool to me.
Well, I know a couple of players who play around 10 PR.
Yeah.
And they're very interested in playing in this because they feel they've got a chance, which they have.
Yeah. It's a perfectly level playing field that way that takes into account skill in a way that's challenging you to play better than yourself and not than the opponent's less important. Your opponent's going to play their average or a little better. Maybe on average, everyone's going to be right around like break even on their average is where it should be, but maybe you'll do a little better, a little worse. But yeah, so if you show up to the tournament and play your best tournament, then that's how you're winning the PR points, which is very neat. You know, I like that. Yeah, that's cool.
And I think it will hopefully encourage players who are playing around 8, 9, 10 to try and drive their PR down to 5, 6, 7, because it allows them to focus on that side. A lot of club players go, I don't care what my PR is. That's fair enough.
Yeah.
They're not the ones who are going to enter the tournament.
Yeah.
But there are a few players who are double-digit PR players who do care about their PR.
Yeah.
And it's a great way for them to use it as a tool and say, look, bring it, play well this weekend, and you're going to pick up the PR points.
I love that.
We'll see. I think it's going to be in July or September. I haven't decided which month yet.
Okay.
But will be announced fairly soon.
Hell yeah. Well, I look forward to it, man. I can't wait to hear more about that. I guess I want to probably like getting close to time, but so you can make your meetings and things like that today. I appreciate having you on here for sure. So you've been studying, just like one last question I had. Like you've been studying the game for, I don't know, 5 years seriously or something like that? Like pretty sure?
4 years.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Do you have any checking off a major international tournament win, like your first international tournament, that's incredible, man. Congratulations on that. I'm curious if you have any other goals around your play that way, if there's things that you're trying to go accomplish this year or next year. What are you shooting for?
My main goal now is to try and make Grandmaster.
Yeah.
Uh, because I like to set myself realistic targets, but they've got to be tough.
Yeah.
I'm currently playing. My last BMAP was 3.9, but I would say realistically, I'm playing around sort of the 4 point low fours, 4.1, 4.2
Yeah.
on average.
That's
So
very
I'm
good. Yeah.
just enough. When I've read your book, Nick, I hope I'm going to be playing around 3.6, 3.7, because that part of it is something I need to improve on. So I could be one of your testimonies if I make, GM. Probably not this year, but hopefully this, next year, to 2024, I'd like to have a GM3 status,
Yeah. Okay.
if
Okay.
possible.
Nice.
But
Nice.
you have to set it up. And then I suppose I'd like to win a UK tournament. Um, you know, but Gibraltar ticked off a huge box. To be fair,
That's
you know,
amazing.
to play that every year of my life and not even reach the quarters for the next 20 years or whatever. So the fact that I've won it on my first attempt is crazy. So that's a big box ticked.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's still a few other ticks here and there though.
Amazing. Yeah, I bet you can do the Grandmaster thing. If your average is where you think it is, like, that's hard work to shave that point 1, point 2 off for sure. But that's in range, you know? Like, that's, yeah, it's like the path to that is less clear when you're in the high fours or low fives or something. But I mean, most of the work is done, it sounds like, for you, you know? So you're right
I,
there.
know, I mean, if you look at my, the WBIF, you can see like all time 25, 10, and 5.
Yeah.
There is that you want to see is a gradual improvement.
Hmm.
And even with BMAD, I think my first BMAD was 6.8 or something.
Yeah.
And then I learned a little bit more about how to cube it correctly in the match. And
Yeah.
it's like 5.2, 4.5, 3.9, 4.1. So yeah, it's achievable, but I know I can't do it without putting more work in and a little bit more effort.
Yeah.
Uh,
Are you playing in the contender tournament in Istanbul then too? Is that your plan?
no, no, I thought I would play in that big one, the one with
The
the
Establer.
suggested.
So amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, because I'll probably win 9 matches in that and still only reach the quarters. That's how it's all about that one is, you know. Um,
Yeah.
but you never know. Lightning can strike twice, maybe. So that's the one I'm aiming for. I don't think I'm strong enough, Nick, to play in the UBC style. I
Huh.
want to be fairly consistently under fours
Sure.
before I think. I mean, I still come out like I did in Gibraltar. I
Yeah.
played a 7 in Gibraltar.
Yeah.
Um, I've got to learn to iron out a few more things. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
we must be pretty close on our standards. You play low fours, don't you?
It
Um,
depends. You're probably playing stronger than me right now, I would imagine. With all the like YouTube stuff and everything, like studying has not been the focus of backgammon for me for a
right.
while. So I can feel the places I'm rusty. But that was like in 2019, I was like right on that, playing probably right in the same range as you, and like I can achieve the Grandmaster title with just enough tournaments now if I keep this work up, right? And then I didn't keep the work up. So that's where I'm at with my play level. Yeah.
Well, I've got a new consultancy job now that I've taken on,
Yeah.
so that will take some of my time.
Yeah.
But that it's flexible enough that I can, play backgammon, probably study a bit more, and still do the work for the company.
Yeah.
So yeah, look, let's say there's famous quote in a comedy series, Only Fools and Horses. This time next year we'll be millionaires. Well, my quote will be, this time next year I might be a grandmaster. you know.
I think you can do it, Jeff. I do. I believe in it. We'll check in, man. Yeah. But yeah, the UBC thing too. I think if I'm going to be honest, we talked about this a lot. Like it would be like nothing short of a miracle for a 4 average PR player to win that. It's of course possible somehow, but very unlikely. But I think they're opening it up to like master level and above too, because it's still a pretty interesting format. Like what you're doing at your home, it's still very nice to like have all the results compiled and see how you do and get to play under that kind of pressure. And it's just like good practice if you're interested in that sort of thing. So I think it can still be a cool like experience, you know. But yeah,
I think you're right. I'm not saying I'm not going to play in it because there's no pressure on me.
yeah,
People aren't expecting me. I mean, when I played MCG in Las Vegas,
yeah,
everybody was like, "Well, who is it? We don't even know." I played a 3.86, I think,
yeah,
against MCG, and they went, "Oh, okay, he's a pretty good player, actually."
right, right,
So I'm a little bit more known, and now I've won Gibraltar. I mean, maybe I don't know if people think you're a good player because you won a tournament.
yeah,
I don't know if it goes, but I'm starting to get out there a bit more, and I might play Turkey because the UBC because people won't expect it.
yeah,
But it does take some pressure off
yeah,
when
yeah.
that happens, and just for the experience, Nick, playing those great players.
Absolutely,
You know,
yeah, yeah.
so I'm not going to rule myself out of not playing.
All right. Well, good luck to you, whichever you choose to do there. Future Grandmaster and current Six Gibraltar Backgammon champion, Geoff Hall. I appreciate your time so much, man. This was a blast. Yeah, I think that's all I've got for now. Is there anywhere I can point people to like more information on your tournament coming up or any of these other projects that you want them to like tune into? Happy to share it in the description of the video and stuff like that, you know?
Hoping that I'm trying to think how I would um, get the word out about the this because it is an invitational tournament.
Yeah,
Whether the UK BGF would post anything on their blogs
sure.
to say that there is a tournament coming up.
Yeah,
But it's really a case of watch this space.
yeah.
And, if anybody wants to find out more information, do I want my email out there? I'm not sure.
We'll
Um,
figure it out afterward. Just keep a
you can find me
just
on
on
Facebook.
Facebook. Yeah, yeah, you can find him that way. Perfect. Well, cool. Thank you so much, Geoff. I really appreciate this. We'll be back with more on the channel soon. Please like the videos and subscribe to the channel if you enjoy this. And more to come. Thanks again, Geoff.
Thanks, Nick. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.